Okay, CJ, I would say that perhaps we can go ahead and start. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Denise. Hi, everyone. I'm CJ Mulcairn. I'm with the Institute for Global Transformation, and Denise Edmond, who is the lady behind the logo today, she will be our moderator for this session, and I will be the host. So really happy today to have Shari Peterson with us. She's the author of the book, The View from 13F. But before I introduce you to Shari, I just want to take a minute just to talk to you about a little bit about the Institute and what we stand for. We believe that change starts from within, whether it's personal transformation, societal transformation, or global transformation. To support this transformation, we offer various classes, webinars, articles, newsletters, and blogs, all available through our website at theifg.org. You can register to join on our website, and at the end of the session today, I'll put up a slide which will give you the details on how to do that. But before we begin, I just want to go over some logistics. So we're going to ask that all of you hold your questions to the end. Shari and I will talk for about 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up to the rest of you for your questions and comments. So let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce Shari Peterson, who is the author of the book, The View from 13F. As a result of her experience, Shari's been on various TV shows such as Oprah, Turning Point, Hard Point, along with various radio shows and blogs. Shari's an entrepreneur and a public speaker, sharing her experiences to help people with their own personal development. She was just recently on the Peter Boyle Show. I happen to know her personally and find that she's pretty fearless and never meets a stranger. Hey, Shari, welcome, and thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you. Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Denise, for all your great work, and hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you all.
Yeah, wow, what an experience, Shari. I remember you telling me about this experience with this flight 811 in 1989, but I didn't realize how, until I read the book, how really horrific it had to have been for you. So if you could, just, tell us a little bit about that, starting from where were you going that day and why?
I was working in the travel business, and getting on an airplane was not a big deal for me at that point. It was going to the grocery store, for lack of a better term. And I was flying from Denver to LA to Honolulu to Auckland to Sydney to work for a week. So we had everything worked out fine. I arrived in Honolulu and we're changing planes. And because I was a travel industry employee, I was complimentary upgraded from the coach section up to the business class section, and I was given seat 9F. I'm the last one to board because they have to make sure that all works out. And I get on the plane and I go to my seat 9F, and there's a gentleman sitting there. He was a very executive level man, and he had his cocktail and his stuff all set out, and he was chatting with his seatmate. And I walked up to the edge of the seat and I said, "I'm really sorry, but I'm in seat 9F. And he kind of looked over his shoulder at me with that, which I didn't blame him. Nobody wants to move when you're all settled in. And he pulled out his seat back pocket ticket and goes, "Well, I'm in 9F. And by then a flight attendant came up and said, "What's the problem?" And we said, "Well, we've got duped seats." She says, "We have to push back, sit anywhere." So I turned around and there's 13F open. So I just plopped down in there and buckled in and prepared for the flight. We took off, everything was normal. There was a little bit of weather. Captain was going around it. So we weren't climbing straight out. We were kind of going at an angle. And I was looking around the airplane thinking, wow, I'm going to be on this plane with these people for 8 hours and I don't know anything about them. And I'm just thinking about that. And I thought, well, I think I'll take a sleeping pill, which was not unusual for me at that time. And then a little voice in my head said, "Don't do that in case you need to keep your wits about you." And I thought, well, that's really weird. So I started reading my book and I settled in and I thought, well, I'll just read my book, and unloosened my seatbelt. I never take them off, but I did loosen it. And we're doing a little bumping around and I hear this young man in my right ear. So now I'm at the bulkhead. There's nobody behind me but the galley, and I'm on the aisle. And this young man whispers in my ear, he goes, "Tighten your seatbelt. You're in for the ride of your life." What? That's how quick I looked, and there was nobody standing there. Nobody.
Wow.
I'm going, "Ugh," and I thought, okay, wow,
This
that's
is an
too
important
weird.
point I'm going to ask everybody to remember. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I thought that's really weird. And I thought, was that a flight crew member in the galley that just leaned around and said that? And I worked for the airlines, and that's not a command that a flight crew member gives. And I kept thinking that is a little prophetic. No, that's too weird. And I started getting a little anxious, and I thought, I'm going to give my seatbelt a tug. And then right about then, all these strange noises started happening, which again, I flew all the time, and I thought, well, that's not normal. There was this grinding noise and a thump, and then boom, whole side of the airplane's gone. And CJ, you just blinked. That's how fast it was. Seriously, it was that fast. There was no, an example, if you've seen the movie Castaways, when they have their rapid decompression and Tom Hanks is sucked out of the bathroom, and that whole crash scene is exactly what we had. You're just normal, and then everything changes. Everything got sucked out. All of a sudden, there's a hole the size 10 by 20 foot hole next to me, and those people in those 8 people in 4 rows of seats, they're just gone. And I'm looking down at the water, and we're at 24,000 feet, which is 5 miles, by the way. You know, we were up there. I'm looking down on clouds. The wind's coming in. It's so noisy. The engines are on fire, which are right next to me. I turn and look. There's fire right outside there. I'm looking at the hole, flames. And I don't even know what happened. You just can't even get your head around it. And I kept thinking, this can't be happening. But it was. And it was so cold. Couldn't get your breath. It felt like somebody was standing on your chest. There were so many things going on. Flight crew members were scrambling, trying to find oxygen. And they had a few tubes that they could attach to their specific crew member masks for an incident like this, but they didn't have enough tubes. So that's since been corrected in the industry, but they didn't have enough for everybody. Flight crew members were trying to clear out the aisleways because that's what they do. And were trying to give us instructions, but the whole inside of the airplane is gone. Just gone. We're down to the structure. Oxygen masks, anything that was in your seat, flew right by me to go out the hole. So my head was pretty banged up. There were people, and it's pitch dark now because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. So there are wires hanging down, and as they're crashing into each other, there's sparks, and we don't know if it's a bomb. Who knows what happened? And this is so new. So every time they'd spark, your heart would just, if it could beat any faster, would just jump, because is this the one that's going to knock us out of the air? Is this the one that's going to blow us up? And you can't talk to anybody because the wind is, 600 miles an hour coming in your face. So you can't talk, you can't breathe, and everything's blowing around, and crew members are scrambling. And there was a flight attendant in the upper left, to my left, right by the stairs of the 747, which was the aircraft. And she was hanging onto the railing, trying to demonstrate how to put the life vest on and then she also would set it down and pick up a megaphone. And she was yelling, so I could see the veins on her neck. That's how dramatic it was. Couldn't hear a thing she was saying. Not a thing. So all this chaos is going on around us.
Wow. What were you doing during that time?
Well, I was just trying to figure out what was going on. And there's a gentleman next to me, 6-year-old daughter and pregnant wife. And I watched them as they picked up one of those little flight pillows and put it over her face, the daughter's face. And I asked him after this was all over, why did you do that? And he said, we didn't want her to see what was going to happen next, because it was clear this was not going to be survivable. And having worked for the airlines for as long as I did, and I hired flight attendants, and I mean, my life was the airline industry, so we knew a lot about what shouldn't happen on an airplane, and this was one of the biggies. I mean, engine fire, rapid decompression, who knows what else is broken. And of course, the flight crew probably had, or the cabin crew, or excuse me, the flight deck had no idea what was going on. They just, because everything on their instruments showed A-OK, they didn't show this cargo door malfunctioning, which the wind caught and ripped up and just peeled it up like a banana. And it all happened in 1.5 seconds.
And so, but you're still with us today. So,
Yeah, we wonder sometimes.
yeah.
And there were people to my right. There's two seats, the aisle, then me. And the couple to my right is completely in shock. And the wife at the window was a bloody mess because the debris, I mean, they took it pretty hard. He was looking straight ahead and would not look anywhere else. So I leaned across and grabbed his arm in the seat, thinking, because their seat was moving, it was because their feet were hanging out the hole. So their seat was broken, the track.
Yeah.
So those 8 seats went out, they're the next 2. So they're not secure, and I could see that. Then I see the flight attendant that asked me to take a seat anywhere, she has been sucked under their seat. Now, you know how big that space is. It's not that big. And she's under there, and she had been in the galley. And as I recall, she said she was bent over to get a soda right when it blew. So it sucked her from her feet under that seat. Had she been standing, she probably would have gone over the top. But those seats stopped her. So I see her, and she's a mess. She's obviously injured. So I'm trying to motion to her what's happening, and she's just looking at me. She grabbed a seat back and pulled it over her head, and she just stayed there in that spot. But I'm holding on to him, trying to get him to look at me, and so he wouldn't look down. He would kind of look over, and I'm holding his arm, and I'm thinking, at what point do I let go of him? I mean, what I don't even know what to do. So the flight crew members were instructing us to put the life preservers on, which was, I'm thinking, well, that's not going to work when we crash into the ocean. And at that point, you start thinking about, I mean, you think about, you're going to die. What do I do with that?
Well, one of the most remarkable things about this event is that your plane returned to Hawaii and landed.
Oh, yes. As we were in the air, and we're basically falling out of the sky. Now, picture this. Do I sound like Sophia from Golden Girls? Picture this. 2 engines on fire, fully loaded with fuel, passengers, unbelievable structural damage, and they don't even know what all is broken. And this Captain Cronin and the crew, and he was a fighter pilot and also a glider pilot, turned that thing around, and out of the hole, after about 17 minutes or so, we could see the lights of Hawaii. So I knew they'd turned it around. How? But we were bouncing all the way down. It was just horrible vibration. And when they shut off the engines that were on fire, it smoothed out a little bit. And he said he had to really fight it, because any altitude we lost, he could not regain on 2 engines when he's heavy. Couldn't do it. So the job he did bringing this in, or the crew did bringing this in, was extraordinary, because he had to bring it in and turn and then go for the runway. And if he came in too short, we were going to hit the side of the island. If he came in too high, did he have enough thrust, and did he have any brakes? Did he have any rudders? I mean, he needed everything to stop this unbelievably heavy aircraft. And once it hits the runway with that kind of damage, is it just going to snap in half or break up, even if it's a good landing? So there were a lot of things going on in the work they did to bring this airplane down. This is the most heavily damaged aircraft that's ever been landed safely in history.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I read somewhere that they did some simulations of this landing, and the simulations didn't work. They were never successful in the simulations.
That's correct. That's what I've been told. Yes, I think, however many they did, they never made it back safely. And Captain Cronin, who I got a hold of after it happened, and my mother and I bought him a beer, for real. We flew to Reno to buy him a beer. But he told me he did not land that airplane. He said, and he was a man of great faith, and he said, I did not land that airplane. And to this day, it's the best landing I've ever had, as far as bringing it in smooth, stop to the end. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened in that part of it, but that's kind of technical. And I did put up some of it in the book about what they were going through and this and that. But as we were coming into land, they were giving us the instructions how to brace for a safety landing, right? So you grab your ankles basically, and I looking out the window and I thought, oh no, this is going to be the last thing I ever see. It's not going to be me looking at my own butt. So I sat up and I just watched it, and I thought, I'm going to sit and watch this because we're never going to make it.
Wow.
So,
you really didn't think you were going to make it?
No, there's no way. There's no way. And during that point, when you get that revelation, when you're sitting there and all of a sudden you know there's nothing you can do that's going to correct what's about to happen. And so I'm thinking, oh man, this is how I'm going to die. I mean, this is a routine flight. I'm going to work for a week and now I'm going to die. And I'm 35 years old. And I thought, how can this be? How did this happen so fast? And my head went to, as we talk about, it just went totally out of my head and into my heart. And I was feeling so many things, and it became very peaceful. It was a surreal kind of peace. And I knew there were things going on around me. And I thought, hey, this isn't going to be that bad. And I thought about my family and how devastated they're going to be, thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a horrible, poor her, she died in this horrible thing. And I thought, yeah, it was all that, but it's not that bad. I'm kind of looking forward to it, because with all this chaos going on around, the peace and the serenity and the I just knew there was somebody there that was going to help me through the next steps. I don't know how to put it in words. It's more of a vibration, but it was so peaceful. And I closed my eyes and I said a prayer, let's get this thing on the ground. And in my mind's eye, I saw this enormous hand come out of the sky and go under the aircraft. And the aircraft looked like it was about the size of your finger. And I just saw him setting it down. And I opened my eyes and looked out, because I thought, there's got to be a hand out there. That was too real. And that's when I saw the lights of Hawaii. So there was a lot of that going on. And the thing that was most interesting, even when I was happening, was I never once thought about, as I knew I was going to die, it all went into what were my relationships. It never was, nuts, I'm not going to finish this job. I wished I'd bought a bigger house. Why did I not buy that car I wanted and I should have always done? It wasn't that at all. It was just, who was I and how did I do? And I could see that would be the first question that I would be asked when I was no longer in this form. It was just the obvious next step. I'm thinking about it because I'm going to have to answer to it. And so I went through that exercise in my head, and I thought, holy cow, did that change a lot of things for me right there?
Oh, I bet.
Knowing I was going to die anyway, but it was, and I try and recreate it in meditations or in conversations, or just, I want to go back to that place, and I can't do it because it was so visceral.
Oh.
You're distracted, go, oh, how am I doing? And then you go, oh crap, I got to add peanut butter to the grocery list or something. You get so distracted. Mm-hmm. So it was a total come to Jesus meeting, for lack of a better term. So the fact that we survived it was just extraordinary, because it was so close to death.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens.
I find it very interesting. It's sort of, like the stories you hear of people being guided by angels, when, like, with the voice over your shoulder, saying, tighten your seatbelt, you're in for the ride of your life.
Well, that's a story.
All right.
So I get back and I'm, this thing happened. Well, there's a whole bunch of other stuff too, but I was here in Colorado, and my friend Nadine came, we saw each other often, and we were talking, and she's very, very wise. And she looked at me with her knowing face, and she goes, so why did you tighten your seatbelt? Whoa, I hadn't even thought of that after the fact. So if she had not said that, it was like I was punched in the chest. It was like, finally, she had to tell me that so I could get out of the stress of it into the, wait a minute, this is bigger. This is bigger than just the incident. Does that make sense? But she said, Nadine was saying, and the next time I saw her, and this is what she told me, she says, well, you were so taken back by that comment. And I thanked her again and said, oh my gosh, thank you for even mentioning that. She said, here, you should read this book. It's about angels. Alma Daniel wrote it, Ask Your Angels. And she said, this might help you. So I read it, and I read it again, and I read it again, and I read it again, because it was just going, oh my gosh, that is exactly what happened. And every time I read it, I picked up something else. And that probably saved my life, because I was so scattered. It was like, okay, it can happen here on earth. It isn't just as you're about to die and step into it. You can have those connections here. And I didn't know that. But that helped me put that together. So those two people made an impact that I'll never forget, as far as how do I sort this out, even though it still took me 30 years, but I can't even imagine if I hadn't had that information.
Right. Well, that's quite an event. I mean, it had to be life-changing in so many ways.
Well, there's, when I left for this trip, what we do is, or at this point, my job was to escort executives at meetings, right? And make sure that everything's taken care of, never let them see you sweat, kind of thing. But as my mother used to tell people, my daughter's a paid escort and she travels with executives all over the world. I was like, first time I heard her say that, I'm like, oh, no, because people were looking. No, let me explain. So
Yeah.
that was her version. She thought it was great.
I think you're going to tell the audience now.
Yeah, well, my mother's from, she was an ornery little Iowa housewife, and that's what I did. I escorted, anyway. So we got quite a chuckle out of that.
But that's because you're in the travel industry.
Right, that's what I was doing. I was on my way to meet this group
people.
and then work with them for a week there. So I get over there. So anyway, we get back to Honolulu, and it's all chaos. And as we're landing, I can see all the emergency equipment, you know, lining the runway, and often, you know, there's just lights everywhere, and it was pretty surreal, and it was so loud. And I've never landed with an open window, so I have all this wind coming in, and I watch. It felt like we were going really fast, and I thought, well, I've never had this, you know. So all this is happening, and I see the lights, and he sets it down, and I'm just ready for us to just implode. And he stops. He gets to the end of the runway and stops. And the minute it stopped, everybody just started applauding and laughing and yelling, like, yeah. And then they boom, 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 evacuate the airplane down the ramp, blah, blah, blah. So they push you in the middle of the back and kick your feet up until you run away from the aircraft. So I go down the slide. Well, I did a no-no. You're not supposed to take anything, but I grabbed my briefcase, which I happened to, it didn't go out. My purse and everything else did. So I grabbed it and stuck it under my arm and went down the slide and started running. And I was halfway to Kauai before this voice. And I was just, all I could think of was this noise and the smell of the fuel and the fire and the chaos. And I'm running and running. And then this voice goes, hey, where are you going? What? I turn around, there's these Hawaiian firefighters standing there. They're kind of leaning on the engine, you know. I turn around, look at them and said, do you not see what I just came from? And as I turned and looked at it, I just collapsed on the runway. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's that soft Hawaiian rain. I just collapsed and put my head down. I just could not believe it. And I felt this real tender, warm, downy, soft, cocoon-like thing come around me. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. It was amazing. And I didn't even feel the rain anymore. And I heard, you're okay. He's wrong. You're okay. And he's wrong was, in my marriage was a mess right at that time. And every time I heard that, I'd pick my head up a little more, and all of a sudden I thought, holy cow, there's a new sheriff in town. And it was so quiet when all this was happening. And then right when I picked my head up, all of a sudden you could hear all the noise again of, you know, people yelling. But it was just this silence that engulfed me in like a cocoon. And the airport was eerily quiet anyway, because they had to stop all traffic because they didn't know what was going to happen. So there was not a lot of landings or anything going on. But then and then out of the mist of the rain come several of the firefighters, and they helped me up. It was like a perfectly choreographed thing. And I had a firefighter on each arm and several of them around me, but they're escorting me back to the aircraft because that's where everything's happening. People running around, medics, the flight crew members are checking on each other. And I saw the cabin crew, and they were walking around looking at stuff, and they looked shocked because they didn't know you don't have a rear view mirror with an airplane, so you can't see what's back there. And they rounded everybody up and put us on these buses, that wiki buses they used to have in Honolulu, that you would get on and go back to the terminal. So they did that, and as we got off, they were sorting us out. Anybody that was near the explosion or near the damage was put over here, and everybody else went this way. And they put everybody else, just lined them up against the terminal wall and just put one line of police tape around them so they could stay put. And all the other passengers were walking around looking at them like, you herded them up or what, you know? So it was kind of an odd way to handle those people. And some of them had cots and blankets, but they took the rest of us straight to the red carpet room where we got to meet the FBI and be interrogated about, what did you see? What did you smell? Who are you traveling with? Can't even think of all the questions, but it was very, and I'm going, I don't know, but you have to go help these people. So after that group, then another group of FBI came in to do the same and, you know, ask the same questions, probably to see if I forgot something or whatever. Then medics were asking, do you need anything, medication, glasses, you need to get to the hospital, are you injured? So all these questions are coming at you, and all of a sudden, they took me to a part of the red carpet room where they cleared it out, and just the few of us that were right there where the incident happened, that was the first time it was quiet. And I just sat down, and the lady took me to a sofa, and I just sat, and everybody was scattered about. And I just sat on that sofa, and I was like, holy cow. And she asked if I wanted to eat or whatever, and gave me a blanket and a pillow. And I just tried to lay down, and I just laid there, and my eyes would not close. I just kept thinking, what was that? What was that? What was that? And I'm looking at this enormous window, and all of a sudden the light of dawn starts coming up. And I could see the silhouette of this aircraft, and I'm thought, what's that? So I sat up and pulled the blanket around me, and I thought, I don't even know what happened. And can't even think. And I'm watching the sunrise over this aircraft, and right when the sun hit the fuselage, that silver fuselage, it was that airplane. And I just went, oh, it really did happen.
Oh, that was the first time you saw the hole?
No, I saw it on the tarmac, but I didn't expect to see it framed in this window with the sunlight on it. It was like a curtain rising on a Broadway play. It was just there, and there was this enormous hole. And it was when the sun hit that silver, first thing in the morning, it was startling, because you keep thinking, no, it didn't really happen. No, until I don't even know how to, you try and say it didn't happen, but yet I'm not in Australia, and I'm sitting in a red carpet room, and I just talked to the FBI, but it didn't happen. So your brain plays tricks on you. But when I saw it, I just thought, oh my God, I don't even know what to do with this.
How long before you got on another plane?
United offered us, we could stay in Honolulu until we were ready to go on. You could go back to your origination, or you could continue on. So that morning they asked that question and put everybody in hotels based on your response. And I went on to Australia that night.
Jeez.
And I don't know how I did it, really, but I talk to people, and they go, "Why? How did you do that?" And I say, "Well, it's how I was raised." And then they give me this really weird look. Like, well, I don't even know what that means. And so that opened up another whole part of the story to me, because how I was raised was a Midwest farm girl, and you get back on the horse. Hey, I'm bleeding, but I'm not dead. Should have been, but I'm not. And so I have a responsibility. I've got hundreds of people waiting for me in Australia, and I'm going to get on this airplane, and I got to get my job done. And my boss said he would obviously send someone else. And I said, no, I got this. I'm fine. It's good. I had a Marine father, and he was always, hey, get in, you out. You going to play, or you going to get on the bench? And he was nice about it, but it was just how we were raised. You don't fool around here. What are you doing? So I thought, yeah, I'm okay. I could do this. Oh, so I spent the day in Hawaii with a friend of mine that I knew. He also saved my life. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for him. But he took me out to the airport that night for an 8 p.m. departure. So we got there a little early, and we were sitting in a little tiki bar, and this cute little local gal was just kind of, there were 8 seats, and we had the only 2. So she was just kind of, chatting away, and they had a TV on, and the news came on and said, newsflash, the United 811, they have located 2 of the passengers in an engine remains. And I lost it. That was the first time I lost it. It was like someone had, I don't even know how to say it. It was, the words came at me, the actual words. I could see the print, and it just came off the screen right into me, and I was just, and the little bartender comes over, and she patted my hand, and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh my God, I was on that flight, and those people were right next to me, and I can't take this." And she didn't even know what to do, and my friend didn't know what to do because I didn't know what to do. And it was another wave of, no, this did happen. That was pretty intense.
So I know as a result of this, you had some offers to go on some television shows, radio shows, and things like that. What brought that about? Why did they pick you to go on the shows?
You tell me. I don't know. I got everything worked out where I went on to Australia and came back. Oh, I'm so sorry. Hold on.
Get some water. Yeah.
Huh?
You've been talking about 40 minutes, so you're doing a break.
Time out.
Yeah.
And when I came back, well, I went on to Australia and worked, which was very, very difficult. I didn't sleep for 66 hours due to, I just couldn't close my eyes. I couldn't be in the dark. I still can't. I'm not good in the dark. I have to have a light on. Hold on one second. I'm going to mute here. You talk for a second, CJ.
Okay, so this has been quite an exciting story. I hope you've all really enjoyed hearing Shari's story. And I know, and we'll get into it hopefully here in a minute, I know that this took her on a path where she has dedicated a lot of her time to helping other people with their personal development. Mm-hmm. And she goes around the country speaking on this. And so I think we'll get there, but Shari, go ahead, pick up where you're
Well, so I came back, and there were a lot of people that got a hold of me because of, I don't know why, it just, people wanted to hear my story. And I was in an elevator right after it happened, and these people all around me were talking about it, going, wow, can you imagine if you'd have been on that flight, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm standing right next to him thinking, oh my God. I don't say anything. My boss sends me to a seminar on stress, and I arrive a little bit late, so I kind of sit in the back. And the guy gets up there, he says, okay, we're going to talk about business stress, but can you imagine if you'd have been on that United flight that the cargo, and I'm sitting there going, what? And I took a job to, yeah, I know, it was all around me. Even on a flight, I went to St. Thomas shortly after, and the couple next to me were newlyweds, and the gear dropped as we're going into St. Thomas. And of course, she's freaking out, and he puts his arm around her, like, oh, I got it, honey. And he says, this is nothing. What if you'd have been on that flight to Sydney when the cargo door blew off? And I'm sitting right next to him, and I thought, holy cow. So people everywhere I went were talking about it. I heard people talking about it at the makeup counter. And then one gal looks at me, she goes, that's her. She's the one that was on that flight. And I thought, oh, I don't like this. That's too much. I don't know you, and you already know about me, which was very unsettling. Yep. And then I believe it was Alma that got a hold of somebody, because the angel phenomena was really becoming well known. And she was working with me personally, thank you, to walk me through a lot of the stress and trauma, because I couldn't find anybody in the professional area as a psychiatrist or PTSD or whatever. It wasn't even called that back then, but nobody, they would, oh my God, they were terrible. They would say, oh, you need to talk about this. Okay, I know the story. What do I do with it? They wanted to dwell on the story. And I'm like, no, no, I got the story. What do I do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And so, right?
Right.
So Alma and my teacher Sandy was also, they were both so very helpful. They were saying, okay, here's how you can put this in place. And that's what led me to, and somehow my name got out there and people started calling me. And I mean, it was interesting. One show had the producer, and then he went to another show and insisted they have me on as a guest. So that kind of stuff happened a lot. And the people started asking me a lot of questions about, well, how did you do this? And what did you do? And I thought, you know what? You hear people give talks and they go on about this is what happened. And you can think your way to rich or whatever you want, or, you know, there's some kind of a reason they're there to hear them, but they never give the people a tool so they can do it. It's just, look at me, I'm rich and famous and I do motivational speeches. Thank you for hearing me. And off they go. And you're going, yeah, but how do you do it? So I started working with people and saying, yeah, I got through this. Let me help you do it too. And I had more people. I had really successful practice for a long time that would tell me, I've been going to therapy for 3 years and you've helped me in 3 sessions. Because all they want to do is get their power back. And what they were doing, and I had to talk to people about this, they would come into me and go, well, that guy isn't working for me, so I'm going to let you sort this out for me. No, 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 that's the problem. I'm not going to sort it out for you. I'm going to teach you how to sort it out. So that's how that whole thing evolved. Just by asking questions. People ask questions. How did you do that? How do you? And it taught me too, we don't know when we're in stress or whatever, we don't know what questions to ask. We go around going, boy, my life sucks. Okay. And, well, so-and-so's mean to me. Okay. And what's your part in that? Well, they're mean to me. I mean, it's, you know, it's all his fault. Well, okay. That's where we got to start. That tells me where we start, because you have a part in whatever is going on around you. People go, oh, you know, everything happens to me. Really? And so we have to back it up and go, okay, so what did you do to get to this place that now you're blaming other people? So one of the first things I work with people on is you have to know the questions. You know your situation, but you have to know the questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we could say like the quality of our life is based on the quality of the questions we ask.
And then the answers you come up with.
Yeah.
Because people want everybody else to solve their problems. And then the real thing they really want is to get their power back. And if you can't ask a question and go, what's my part in this? And then you go, oh yeah, I was kind of yeah, I didn't do that. Yeah, I could have done that better. Or you go, no, I'm okay. You will make a decision at that point and you're unstuck then. Once you clear it out in your head, you go, yeah, I did do something that was inappropriate and I probably should apologize, and he wasn't that mean, he was just reacting to me or whatever. Or the other side should be, no, I really honestly did okay. And so that person really isn't a benefit to my life. So why am I here? There's the question, instead of, well, see, it's complicated, or how will they get along without me? Or you get stuck in the story and you don't take it apart and go, okay, what do you do with this? Everybody just wants to, they start repeating their story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I'm saying, whoa, time out. Let's go back and say, where are you in this story? Because, you know, I don't have any money. I don't have anybody in my life. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have this. I don't have that. Really? This all happened to you? I don't say this to them, but we get around to that. And what that does, it gives people a tool. They can say, okay, I can now handle my own life. I'm not sitting here in fear what if, I can go, yeah, I need to really sit down and think about this. Even writing this book, when I worked on The View from 13F, I had a lot of people, and you know who you are, telling me, write the book, and I just couldn't do it. And I thought, and I thought, okay, listen to yourself. So I took about 10 days, but I wrote a list of every single excuse I could ever possibly come up with to not write it. List. Everything on that list I had to, in my mind, completely resolve, or I wasn't even going to start the project.
Wow, that's interesting. So that's how it started. Yeah. I think one of my favorite chapters in your books, and I will just kind of end here, is actually your last chapter, because you share a lot of the wisdom you gained from this whole experience. And so I think that was really, the whole story is great. I mean, I couldn't put it down once I started reading it.
Thank you.
I really loved the last chapter of you sharing your experiences.
Well, I'm passionate about when I do talk with people, whether it's a small, I still do counseling. I'm happy to work with people, and I love hearing in their voice or seeing their eyes, the light come on and go, oh. So oftentimes when I'm invited to speak, I like to include a workshop, because you can do here's the story, but then let's go talk about it. How can you apply it? Let's make it work for you. I did it, and I know you can do it, because my life was a mess. I was in a horrible marriage, alcohol, pills, party, just because I didn't want to deal with it. And that's one of the things I had to sort out and go, what are we doing here? This is, I'm allowing these things to happen to me, and I just feel like I'm just lost. So I go to other things to hide the pain or whatever. No, it's not that bad. I was told always to keep my mouth shut because I didn't have anything to say. So when we were in functions, I would be holding a cocktail, because then I couldn't talk, because I'll go get another. It was, those are my instructions from my spouse. So I had to apply a lot of this stuff to say, no, you don't have to live like that. That's not you in power. And in power is a very positive, because sometimes people go, well, I want to get my power back, and they stand there with their hands on their hips like Wonder Woman, like, I could do this. And maybe it's something as simple as, like, right now in these times, you go, people try and tell each other how they should be. You shouldn't act like that. You should wear a mask. You shouldn't wear a mask. You should. You get all those you shoulds all the time. And maybe we would all be better off if we stop telling people and just don't become one that you don't like. Don't be that person.
That's a great point, Shari, and I think we'll leave it here so we can open it up
Perfect.
to everyone for questions and comments. And I'm sure people have a lot of questions for you coming up here. And so Denise, can I turn it over to you now, and you tell us how we're going to moderate the question and answer session?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Shari. I mean, it's just a fantastic story. You open up the book with your with the story of the the airplane disaster and landing, but there's so much more to your book. I discovered in reading that there's so many more threads of wisdom and golden nuggets post 1989 that you've got to share with folks. So so I'll open it up to questions. I see we have Jan, who has her hand raised. Jan, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi, Jan.
Can you hear us now, Jan? Maybe not. Let's see. I see we have, I'll come back to you, Jan. Let's see, Sandra.
Do they have to unmute themselves or do you unmute them?
They do have to unmute themselves. Okay, let's go back.
And
Let's
you can
see if
also
we can-
chat your questions at the bottom if you can't. We can't hear you.
Yeah, Jan and Sandra, maybe you can type in your questions in the chat. I see Cheryl. Cheryl, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Shari.
Hey, what's on
Could
your
I
mind?
ask a question?
Yeah,
Could
please
you
do.
could you speak to the dimensions that you experienced in terms of a spirituality or your closeness and relatedness to either spirit or God that has helped you embrace what has happened to you and helping others?
Good question. I was raised in a small town Methodist upbringing, but my whole life I've had conversations in my head. And again, that's not a joke. I just hear things, and I always have. And we grew up reading the Bible and Bible lessons and loved it. The stories were amazing. And I read and studied a lot of other philosophies as well, because I thought there's got to be more to it. There's other dimensions to it. And once this incident happened to me, I suddenly realized I don't have to read about it anymore. I know this is all true. You know, this never-ending love, and what you do comes back to you. If you put out good, it returns in that manner. If you put out ugly, it becomes uncomfortable for you. And in my writing, I even talk about it's like swimming. You know, I can read all about swimming and I get the certificate and I'm a PhD in swimming, but I've never been in the water. And my dad throws me in the water and suddenly I know how to swim. Now I know how to do it. Can't test me on it. I don't have to read about it, but I've been there. I know what the water feels like. I know everything about it. So I think we all have these experiences, we just don't recognize them. You may have almost been in a car accident and that little voice says, oh, you know, look to your right, and there's some wacko that nearly hits you. And we don't stop and go, wow, thanks. We just go, holy cow, I almost got smashed into. So you can uncover it yourself by just listening and stop talking. I mean, even go sit in the park and just focus, you know, say, oh, the trees are nice. And then you kind of look down and look at the grass and just keep bringing your focus in on everything you do. And you're going to start, then all of a sudden you expand out and everything starts making more sense. And I talk about this too. My dad had an amazing garden and I would watch him put the seeds in and I would think, well, why do I want to grow faster? And then it hit me, you know, if I go over there and start digging around and pull at it to make it grow faster, I'm going to kill it. Or if you go to a restaurant and you say, I want a tuna sandwich, you don't go back in the kitchen and ask everybody how this is going to happen. It comes to you. You put it out there and it comes back to you. So there's a whole natural law if you just stop and plug into it. It's all around us. And I bet everybody on here has had an experience where they go, oh yeah, I wouldn't have hit that deer if I hadn't seen it or whatever. So does that helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shari. We've got Lynn. Lynn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hi, Lynn.
We can hear you very well.
Shari, you know I loved your book since we talked recently, for which
Yeah,
I'm
thank you.
very thankful. But I just want to say I'm so glad that you're still here with us after everything you've been through.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
happy you're here.
Thank you for that. We've got so many questions and in the chat, as well as people raising their hands. I think we'll have Diane next. Diane, I'm clicking on the button to allow you to speak. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you
Hi,
hear
Diane.
me? Okay.
Yes, fantastic.
Thank you, Shari and Carolyn, CJ. Really wonderful, so interesting. And I wanted to know about your relationship with the angels since then. are you in relationship? Did you study them specifically? You know, do you have your own angels? Do you speak with the archangels? Or are you just in general, let's deal with whatever divine messages come?
Well, that's a really good question. And if I might, again, mention this book, if you go to Ask Your Angels, there's a whole process that tutors you in how to achieve that. So having read the book over and over again, I was lucky enough to meet Alma as a gift. It's a story, but when we met, I was blown away by the way she communicated, and I even took a personal class that we did a lot of work about opening up. And again, it's just simply listening. And I think people forget they want to help us. You've heard the term as above, so below, right?
Of course. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So if you think about it, if I go to you, Diane, and say, hey, I just got your car washed and filled it up with gas and, you know, whatever, you would turn to me and go, oh, thank you. That's really great, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, they appreciate the same respect. So when something good happens, even if you cook something for the first time and go, holy cow, it's actually pretty good, which happens with me a lot, where I go, maybe not so much, but this time's pretty good. I look around and say, thank you. I don't know to whom or to what, but I could feel a swell. I get a wave of gratitude. It's a communication that you have to nurture. You can't just go, I'm going to meditate and talk to my angel. You have to say, I really want you to help me. And when you do, I'm going to thank you. And
Right.
you're going to be amazed how that opens up for you. But do read the book. There's a lot. Oh, excuse me. Go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, the book sounds great. You just validated something for me, so I appreciate that, because I do like something very odd will happen, but it's good, and then I'll just smile. There's no one else around. I just smile to myself and go, okay, thank you. You know, so yes, I totally get it. I just tell you real 10-second share that my dad was in the hospital. He passed away when he was 94 a few years ago, but rest in peace. I got this voice, like you got that voice. And we went to visit him, my husband and I, and he didn't look well. And I thought, there's something wrong. And I got a voice at 10:30 at night at home, and it said, your father is dehydrated. And I called, and anyway, his life got saved over that voice.
Yep.
That was a very clear voice, just like what you said.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, just came and called the doctor, and the rest, you know.
But I think, yeah, we forget that, and we just need to remember they want to help us. They're standing around going, I'm here, just give us a call, you know. So
yeah, that's good advice.
everybody just listen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane. I'm going to go, Shari, I'm going to go to the chat because we've got quite a few questions on the chat. So we've got a question here from Polly. Polly's asking, once you started writing the book, 30 some years later, did old memories begin to reveal themselves?
Yes. Yes, that's a good question. It was pretty intense and very therapeutic for me to do that, because so many things came up that I had forgotten. And it was intense journaling, which people always talk is really good for you. And I agree it is. Write down your dreams, everything. You'd be surprised the pattern you see. But writing the book was, it was good for a lot of reasons. And I'm surprised, and I'm very humbled how many people have commented so positively and how it helped them. And I really appreciate that. So yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Polly. We've got another question in the chat from Dory. Dory is saying, I'm curious, what caused the plane to turn around since they were unaware of what was happening?
Oh, well, they knew they had a major malfunction, a major catastrophe, a major incident, because the aircraft went like this when the blew, and the engines were on fire. So one of the flight deck members came down the spiral staircase, and I watched him walk down the stairs, and the look on his face when he saw the hole, he just, I mean, horror, and he ran back upstairs. So they did know, they knew something dramatic had happened, but he had no idea. They had no idea what it was. So they knew,
Wow.
yeah, and we were falling out of the sky. So they knew they had to get back. That little detail.
Can I, before we go on to any more questions, I just want to put up, I would just want to let people know how they can get Shari's book. So I'm going to share my screen for a second, if you don't mind, and then we'll go back to any questions. Shari, if you can stay on a little bit longer. Oh, you have to enable screen sharing, Denise.
Let's see.
For me. Shari's holding up the book now, The View from 13F, and you can get it at Shari's website, sharipetersonauthor.com, or we can get it at amazon.com. Either way, but if you go to sharipetersonauthor.com, you can get a personalized signed copy from Shari. So, all right, we won't have to put it up then if we can't. When you go back to the question.
Okay. Okay, maybe we'll take Tracy next. Tracy, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. I have a question, but I want to say first that I had the benefit of seeing Shari officiate a wedding. She does that too. And I loved your energy then. And then when I heard your story, I was even more in love with your energy, like, whoa. I also in the book wanted to say one of my favorite parts was that you continued to wear your same clothes once you landed in Auckland, and even when your suitcase arrived, and you just kind of walked around it like it was, and I just really felt like I got that for some reason, you know? So I just love that book. That was an amazing book. You're an amazing person. So my question is kind of two. One is, are you still in touch with other people on your flight? And also, what happened to the guy in your original seat?
Oh, we've lost Shari's sound. She's muted. Denise?
Oh, how did that
Shari, you have to, yeah.
Good, I can hear you.
happen? See, there I go touching buttons. Hey, Tracy, thank you for chiming in.
Yes, of course. My
Yes,
pleasure. I'm glad you picked me to answer.
Yeah, we do a lot of things over 30 years, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah, the clothes I had, I mean, you're not thinking right. So I wasn't sleeping, and the suitcase was just too much, and it was in the middle of the room, and I just couldn't even open it. I just would walk around it. What was the rest of your question?
I just wanted to know if you were still in touch with any people on the flight,
That's
and
right.
also what happened to the guy in your original seat.
Well, there were 9 people that were ejected from the aircraft. The 8 next to me and the guy in my seat died. He was the only one that was pulled out of his seat.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was the, yeah, I would, so that took me a while to get my head around that. And because it was 1989 when this happened, that we didn't have Facebook or, you know, any of that. In fact, when they took us into the Honolulu airport to contact loved ones, we had to stand in line at a payphone. So the representative walked me to the front of the queue, and I had my quarter, and I was shaking so bad I had to hold one hand with the other to get it in the slot to call somebody. So we didn't really, there were a few of us that went on to the next flight, but nobody stayed in touch. There's a fellow here in Denver who is an attorney who was on that flight, and I run into him once in a while, but it was just a different time. We just all scattered.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you weren't in that seat. You know?
Thank you. Thank you. How could I forget that part? In fact,
And I
let me show you.
remember when you got back on the flight again and they put you back in that 9F. So, and I remember in the book you were like, oh my God, really? I got to sit here? I love that part.
No, we weren't doing that. That's exactly right. No, but here's my boarding pass. Can you guys see it?
Oh, wow. I love it. Look at that. Oh my
That's an
goodness.
actual
Yes.
boarding pass. Denise was saying it's so old school. They wrote on it.
That's funny.
I love it that way, Shari. It makes it way more memorable. It tells the story of what happened, right?
I agree. And I loved your book. Your book was fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So Shari, we've got a couple other comments. Thank you guys. We've got Anne who just wants to say thank you very much. We've got Jill who also says, I just want to say that I know why we chose you to speak because you're an amazing storyteller. And then we've got a question from Sandra. Sandra's saying, hello, Shari. In 1989, I was working in the development of the protocol for treating PTSD. I want to know the stages you went through in addition to when did you feel you mastered them?
Wow. PTSD, that's amazing. Good question. I have a friend who's a PTSD therapist now, and she has told me that I have really mastered what was the issue. And I'll tell you what the biggest thing was, and I didn't even know I had it till I gave a talk at a group, and a fellow came up and slid his business card across, and he said, I bet you don't know it, but you have probably you're 7 on a scale of 1 to 10 in PTSD. And I flipped his card over. He was a psychologist or psychiatrist. He said, I'm not looking for clients. He said, I just don't think you recognize it. And I went, huh. So I did a lot of thinking about that. And because you're with PTSD, what I found is I was doing something that was completely normal. Get on a plane, go to work, come home, go somewhere else. And it became unnormal. It almost killed me. It was so off the charts. And that's when I realized even it manifested into the aftermath in the hotel rooms, because I realized, why couldn't I sleep? And this was years later. Why was it I couldn't sleep? It was because I was doing another normal thing. And how did I not know that the whole frickin' hotel wouldn't crash down around me? And I was just always on alert because nothing was normal anymore. I just didn't trust. And so that's why when I was given the sign, well, maybe you should look into this angel thing. And that's what made me realize that everything's perfect anyway. And if it does crash down, then it is my turn to die. And I also realized this, that we know we're going to die, right? I mean, I don't know who's going to get out of that. What are you going to do to live? And that's what helped me get through the PTSD. It's like, I need to make better choices because I know I'm going to die. But in the meantime, how are we going to make this work?
Wow, fantastic. And I think in terms of, from the point of questions and comments, I think it's beautiful that we leave it there at that question. What are we going to do to live? So CJ, I'll turn it back over to you to close us out.
Shari, thank you so much for being such a fantastic speaker for this month's webinar. And I'd like to ask anybody else if you're interested in attending any of our other webinars. We do these bi-monthly. You can just sign up at ifgt.org and get on our newsletter, and you will be notified of all these special events. And so, but thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. And Shari, again, fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. Take care of yourselves.
All
And
right.
call me if I can help. Thank you.
Thank you, CJ. Thank you, Shari. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks for your help. Bye now. Bye, everyone. And Shari's got her book up there.